setting up a loot filter looks like. The first thing we're going to do is create a new filter. We'll call this Primalist Scorpion. And we can make this as detailed as we want. Now, for the sake of this example, I'm going to use a predetermined loot filter that I have. Just because it has a few base things that I would want on every one of my loot filters. So, like, I'll use my Smite Warpath. And I'll just duplicate this. Now, this is going to become Primalist Scorpion. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'm not going to create these few roles. Like, I want to hide all normal magic and rare items. I want to recolor idols pink because that's what I do. And I want to emphasize anything with T7 or anything with double T6 because those are important. And then this is the blue is what we're going to use to look for loot that we want for our character. Or you can use whatever color you want, but we'll start it. So we're going to add our first rule. Now you can do this a few different ways. The first thing I always do is go to idols, and I look for idols. So we're going to come into idols, and I'm going to move this over on this other screen so that I'm not tabbing back and forth constantly. So we want to show, we want to emphasize, and we want to recolor it to something. And so that's how it works. Now I've got pink here for idols, so we have show, recolor, emphasize. And then we come in here to idols, and we're going to uncheck all the idols here, and uncheck all the idols here. We'll start off with 0 affixes. Now, aspect of the Viper effect is the most important thing on an idol. You're going to want those idols as a priority. Now, you also want healing effectiveness on those idols, but it doesn't matter because we need increased aspect of the Viper. And so we're just going to get every aspect of the Viper idol we can get, and then take the best one with the best secondary suffix. And then outside of that, for idols for the build, you're just going to use small idols to fill in the holes. And so that's really straightforward. With the new Weaver's idols, we're going to use Weaver idols for that. So we'll just come down here to the idols section, and we'll just do anything with health on it is always a good thing. So health and mana, health and added regen, health and health on kill, vitality and added health regen. All those are good Weaver's idols. So that'll just get us a good base for idols. The idols for the build are really simple and straightforward. Now, you've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 gear slots. So you can go through and create for each gear slot. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to show, emphasize, recolor, and then we'll say red, for example. So we're going to want everything to be red. So we're going to add this, and then we're going to use this as just a base for all of our gear that we're going to be highlighting. Now, of course, we don't have any rules at all in here, so it's highlighting everything as red right now. But we will duplicate this rule. We need it 11 times. So we'll start off with the top of our gear, and we'll go to helmet slot. So we need a type, and we want a helm. And then we want the subtypes for our helm are going to be the Tusked Helm, which is the best in slot. Ancestral Crown, also really good. Greatwood Visage, also really good. And Ice Wolf Pelt, also really good. So we'll search for only those types when we're looking for it. And then we're looking for aspect of the Viper effect, which is going to be the most important thing on our helm. And so whenever we're looking at aspect of the Viper effect, we do the same thing. We go to affix, go to aspect of the Viper, and hit confirm. Now we want it to have that affix on it, and we want it to be more or equal to, and we'll set it for 5. You can change this later if you want this to be a higher requirement, like you've already got 5s, you're not looking for 5s anymore. Now you need only T6s, or now you need only T7s, etc., etc. You can adjust this kind of as you go with where you need to be based on your gear. Now, we also are going to be looking for increased health. Increased health is very, very good for our character. So anything with good increased health on it we'll take that as well. So those are the two ones we're looking for. Now you also want like resistances and strength on it, but you can always add those. Those are the two most important nodes on your helm that you're going to be looking for. Now you're like in the late campaign version of this build, essentially, or early campaign, however you want to describe it. So we're not going to be as picky on the gear on our character. So we're just going to look for stuff that is good, that works for us. And then, like I said before, you can lower this down to 4 or 3 if you want to look for smaller affixes. But we're probably going to look for a minimum of 5 and ideally a 6 or higher affix on that while we're looking for it. And then you just go down the list. And so we can use this part of the build planner, these items. So body armor, ancestral garb, Kolheim armor. So we come down here, add a condition, go to type. Go to armor, body armor. And then subtypes, we go to primalist, ancestral garb, and Kolheim. And then we add a condition, and we want to search for affixes, and we're going to come in here and we're going to put in the affixes we want. Body armor, aspect of the Viper. And increased health. Again, both very important on the body armor. And then there are 2 subtypes for the body armor. And then we come down here, we do the same thing for gloves. Come in here, go to item type, go to armor, go to gloves. And then add affixes that we're looking for. We didn't give these a more or equal to tier of 5. And it's looking for one of the 2 affixes. And so gloves, we go to subtypes, plated gauntlets, eternal gauntlets, and ascetic gloves. So we go eternal, ascetic, plated. Those will be our main choices there. And then we go to affixes. On gloves, we're looking for hybrid health as the most important thing. Now, you're probably not going to find a whole lot of high-tier hybrid health. It's a rare affix. But getting attunement or strength as a prefix on the gloves is very easy and very common. So we're literally looking for every one of these bases that has hybrid health on it. We don't care what tier it is. We just want hybrid health on it. Strength and attunement's easy. So we'll just highlight all gloves with hybrid health on it. And you just go down the list. Very, very simple for getting it put together. And then you can come in and customize the tier of the gear and what you're looking for as you further progress in the game by editing each one of these ones. And you can name these just for your sake. Helmets. Name. And go body armor. Name, and go gloves. And that way you know what each of them is. You can make changes. You're always looking for T7s. You're always looking for T6s. If you have something else that you're always looking for, you can put it in here. Obviously, there are some uniques that are very important for the build. And so there are... You're going to run either... You're probably going to do life-based later on, but you could do low life ward based. And so we can have something in here specifically for uniques. So we'll add a condition, go uniques, and we'll come in here and search. And so we need cleaver solutions are very important. And pale ox is very important. And erased scents are very important. Bastion of Honor is very important. Obviously, the stupid ring, red ring. Everyone wants red rings, like every build in the game. And then if you go with Ward later on, you'll want to collect Exsanguinous, and you'll want to collect Boulder Fist. The other items, the Last Steps of the Living and the Twisted Heart, you can highlight those, but they only drop from bosses. You're like going to be specifically going in and farming for those. There's no real need to highlight them, but we'll highlight them anyway. And for the uniques, we'll make the uniques I don't know, green. They're a little bit different. And then this becomes your unique rule name. And that's how you do it. And whenever you fill out all of these, if you need more, you just duplicate it to create more. And whenever these are all full, you remove the ones that you haven't used, or you just uncheck them. I recommend leaving one of them unchecked, so you can always add a new rule, recoloring it just like this without having to create a new one. And that'll get you going in a good direction. Now, to share these filters, you hit export, copy to clipboard. I use this code file website for sharing because it's easy. Yeah, I'm a human. Last time I checked. And you dump it in here. And then hit share. Protect it just so it doesn't get edited. And then here is a code file for the loop filter that we started for you. And I'll let you finish it with the other items just so you can get a feel for how everything works. And get you going in the right direction, sir. Thank you very much. Here today we are going to do an update on our Tornado Shaman. We've got 2 days of play into him, and he is up to level 95. We're not pushing corruption, we're just trying to get good blessings out of Spirits of Fire right now, but we are up to about 211 corruption on the character right now. So let's get into mapping. As far as play style goes on this build, it is really straightforward. The first thing you're going to want to do at the beginning of your map is make sure your Spriggan is summoned. He does have a tendency of dying. You want to numlock your war cry, so you want to be spamming war cry, and that's going to keep your stacks up so that you have haste and frenzy. And then you're just going to run out and drop tornadoes. Tornadoes are set up in this build to cast storm bolts. They have an incredibly long range, and so they're going to hit everything on the screen and potentially stuff off the screen. So it doesn't really matter where you place them. The tornado itself does not do a significant amount of damage, so you don't have to put it on the target. If you've got 30 tornadoes on the target, those 30 tornadoes are going to do about the same damage as one storm bolt worth of damage. So just get the tornadoes down. You can use the tornadoes to control the position of targets because we do have some pull on the tornadoes. So if it's a melee target that is charging you, you can just keep tornadoes down out in front of you, and the tornadoes will kind of constantly pull them back into it so that the target can't get to you. But all of your actual damage is going to come from the storm bolts that the tornadoes are casting themselves. Now, mana is obviously a challenge on the build, and so you don't want to use more tornadoes than is necessary to kill the targets. Your mana is going to be resolved with mana regeneration on rings and belt, of which I unfortunately have gotten 0 rings and 0 belts with mana regen on this character that I'm willing to equip yet. So right now, mana is just kind of hit or miss. But as you get better gear, mana becomes much more easily resolved. You can also run less cast speed and more damaging stats on your gear, and that can make a big difference in managing your mana. As you can see, we pretty much blast everything. Tornadoes do a ton of damage. It's a very safe build to play. We have a lot of layers of tankiness, which we'll go over. Damage over time is still dangerous to the build, but damage over time is dangerous to just about every build out there. And tornadoes kill everything. Fairly straightforward. Let's kind of go over the build, and then we'll talk about the build guide itself. Now, this is a build that I have played in the past, but I didn't make a specific build guide for it this season because Maxroll had an already fairly in-depth Tornado Shaman build up, and so we're using that as a base and then modifying it to fit our character best. So let's kind of talk about our skills first. We are using Gathering Storm, Maelstrom, Tornado, Warcry, and Summon Spriggan. I've been playing around with a few different things with Tornado, and so my skill points have been moved around a bit, but this is what it is going to look like base for your character. And then down here we are using Druidic Control to make the Tornado stationary. So this is the biggest difference between the way I have my build set up and how Maxroll has it set up. I think that Druidic Control is critical to play the build because you're going to cast a lot of tornadoes. There's probably 50 tornadoes right there in that location. And that allows me to see the whole screen, and those tornadoes can hit everything on the screen. Now, if you're playing the build with Maxwell's Guide and you do not run Druidic Control and you're fighting a boss, this is what your screen looks like while you're fighting the boss. And it gets worse the longer you go in the fight. When the tornadoes can move around, you're going to be completely unable to see boss mechanics, ground effects, things you need to dodge. This is not a functional strategy. Absolutely critical that you do get Druidic Control once you're to the point in the game where face tanking anything is not an option and you're going to actually need to do some dodging. So this is a very important node. Your damaging nodes are going to come from Hurricane, Lasting Storm, Frequent Lightning, and then your mana reservation is going to come from Gust of Renewal here so that you can cast more tornadoes. This increases mana regen and the mana efficiency of the tornadoes. As you're building your character out to start with, get Charged Storm so it throws Storm Bolts, immediately rush to 4 out of 4 Gust of Renewal, then immediately rush to 4 out of 4 Frequent Lightning, and then get the rest of the stuff as you can. As you can see, we've got 28 total skill points in the skill. 3 of those are coming from Tribolectra, 4 of them are coming from the chest piece, and then 1 of them is coming from a Thorn Slinger. On your character, if you do not have Tribolectra, you would take some points out of Lasting Storm here, maybe a point out of Frequent Lightning, 3 points out of your cast speed here, 1 point out of your Stormbringer here. Those would all be places where you can pull from, but you're going to want to maintain Druidic Control. Obviously Charged Storm, 4 out of 4 Gust Renewal, and then 4 out of 4 Double Cast. So those are all very important. Strength of Air is just a requirement to come down here. If you wanted better pull strength from your tornado, you could pull out of your cast speed here or your cast speed here and come down into Strength of Air and get more control from your tornadoes. And Gathering Storm is how you're going to scale your Storm Bolts. We're taking 2 out of 2 Tempest Weapon because we are using a Tempest Maw. We're going over to Rending Vortex for crit chance. We're going over to Lightning Strikes twice for Storm Bolt repeats, and then Clouds on the Horizon for a larger target area. Maelstrom, we are getting Windswept and Wind Fury for Frenzy and Haste. We're getting Dodge down here, and we're getting Stun Chance over here. And then Power of the Storm just allows your Maelstrom to also Stormbolt things near you. This is a small amount of damage, but not a terrible choice to put in here. And then 1 more with our final extra point just for additional targets on the Power of the Storm. Warcry is how we're resolving our crit on the build, and so we have 100% crit chance here and 100% crit chance here. So for 4 out of every 5 seconds, we have 200% crit chance, and that is what allows us to cap our crit on the build. We are also using Warcry for Whirlpool, which gives us Maelstrom stacks on use. And then we are using a Summon Spriggan primarily for the healing aura down here, which gives us base crit chance and crit avoidance. Spell damage right here, and dodge per point of attunement rating. So our defenses are based around having a reasonable amount of armor, and then a lot of dodge, which then gets converted into endurance threshold, and then running 60% endurance. So the idea is going to be to keep your endurance threshold over your max life. And so as long as we're spamming Warcry right now, we have an endurance threshold of 1782. We have max life of 2400. So we would want to get more dodge on the build, because that is how we're going to be keeping our endurance threshold up. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can get endurance threshold. There are items that have max endurance threshold, but for us, we're going to be using dodge, and that's going to be being converted into endurance threshold by us standing still with a foot of the mountain. Outside of that, you want to make sure you have resistances capped, and you can get a little bit of ward retention if you would like to, because we are generating a lot of ward through the Twisted Heart of Eucharos. As far as our passives go, our passives are fairly straightforward. We're going Natural Attunement into Wisdom of the Wild. This is a little bit different. The build guide goes down into Primal Strength. If you're feeling like you need more defensives, you can pull this out here and put it into Primal Strength. On our Shaman node, we're getting Attunement, Attunement, and Attunement, because that is the most important thing in the build. Attunement scales our damage and our survivability. And then we're getting 2 points in here so that we can get 3 out of 5 here, which is Lightning Penetration per Attunement. We're getting attack speed while we have a totem active. We're not actively casting any totems, but we have an idol that will constantly summon a totem for us. And then we're coming out 8 out of 8 conflicts, which is 8% less damage taken from shocked enemies. And so this tree for the Shaman is fairly straightforward. In Beastmaster, we're just going Earth Sign Strength and Boar Heart for the additional damage reduction. And on Druid, we're going Chitinous Plating for the Endurance, Druidic Prowess for the Attunement, and then we're rushing over to Bush Stalker for the increased crit chance. Then you've got a couple of choices for filler. You can go Thicket of Thorns if you want Thorn Shield and increased armor for more defenses. You can go Primordial Resonance for increased damage, or you can go Wind in the Leaves for increased cast speed. If you're having mana issues, then you would move Wind of the Leaves down here to Primordial Resonance, and then once you get your mana resolved, you can take points out of here and put it up into Wind in the Leaves for additional attack speed for offense. On our items, we are using a Tribe Electra right now because I have not received a Wrong Warp. A Tribe Electra does give us the ability to have this +3 to lightning spells, spell mana cost reduction, and increased cooldown recovery for evade at the cost of now evade charging using our mana to move around. We can evade faster, but we're going to burn through mana more frequently using evade with Tribo Electra. But the +3 to lightning spells is a tremendous amount of damage out of our tornado skill. On our helmet here, we do want a Primalist Tusked Helm because that is leech, and we only have a few sources of leech, so it is important that you use that base. In that base, you would just want attunement and then useful stats on it. On our amulet over here, I've got one that just has spell damage and lightning pin on it. Neither of these is ideal, but I haven't picked up a good amulet yet. You'll see the amulet options in the build guide. The Eye from Lagan, the Eye of Storms, gives you a tremendous amount of damage increase with your Maelstrom stacks. If you're going to use that amulet, then you would want to run different on your Maelstrom. We'll talk about that in a minute. On our body armor, we do want Tornado and useful stats on it. The Pale Ox armor is a good option as well if you want something defensive. This is an item that is in the build guide, which gives you damage redirected to your highest health minion. And then ideally you would want to slam Tornado into that along with either attunement or health, depending on whether you want defenses or offenses. On our offhand, we are using a Tempest Maw. Tempest Maw is incredibly important for the build. It's a tremendous amount of damage because the melee lightning damage gets converted to spell lightning damage. It has spell lightning damage base. It has attunement base. Very easy to get 1 LP or 2 LP on this. And then obviously Crit Strike Multi is our highest damage affix because we are crit capped. On our rings, they're bad. I need better rings. You want mana regeneration and attunement on rings, probably. Mana regeneration and attunement on the rings. And under your belt, you want health and mana regeneration. On our boots, a foot of the mountain is very important to the build. Move speed is very important to play. So you do want to get a foot of the mountain with a T7 move speed on it. And then ideally, you will also get attunement on those boots. Gloves, we have attunement and crit chance here, as well as frailty. It is important you have a source of frailty and a source of shred armor. So that's really the role that these gloves and these amulet are playing right now. And then a Twisted Heart just gives you a tremendous amount of ward while you're spamming out tornadoes and standing still. And so that helps to offset taking hits while you're standing still. The ward conversion is great because you're leeching back the life that you spend on your ward as long as you have enough leech. So again, we want leech here, leech on the druid tree. And then for our blessings, we're going to run spell leech over here. On our blessings, we're going to run armor, all res here, obviously spell leech here. And then over here, chance to shred lightning. Not a lot of options on your blessings. You're going to use the ones that are available. Just get the best rolls that you can on those. As you can see, we've got some terrible rolls here. I don't have a greater blessing on the armor yet. But these are the blessings that you're going to be using for the build itself. Now let's go take a look at the guide. This is the guide posted by Amarathi on Maxroll, which I'll have linked down below. As you can see, the Tusked Great Helm is very important. Eye of Storms gives us the increased damage per Maelstrom. Now, on this guide, you're running Maelstrom with Beneath the Waves, which means you'll be casting Maelstrom every 3 seconds. The reason he's doing that is because you get a tremendous amount of damage from the additional Maelstrom stacks up here, and a tremendous amount of survivability from the dodge conversion to endurance threshold from having higher Maelstrom stacks. However, it's one more thing to press, and so I tend to avoid that, and so I've made the build a little simpler by not including this, and probably not going to be using this amulet as well. I think a rare amulet is going to be more than sufficient for the build. He is using a wrong warp because it is the increased spell damage per 1% movement speed. We run about 80 to 100% movement speed depending on your gear. That is a lot of spell damage. Wrong warp is definitely going to be your best in slot here. And again, I'm searching for one of those. I don't have one yet. Again, on your belt, you want mana regen rings, mana regen and attunement. Resistances and health are also nice. The attuned foot of the mountain, and obviously gauntlets with increased cast speed and increased health and reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. You are going to have one source of reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. His guide's wrong. You need one source of critical strike avoidance. The Spriggan awards us with crit strike avoidance, not reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. So make sure you are getting a reduced or a critical strike avoidance on your rings, not reduced crit damage on your gloves. That's not going to do anything for you. You're still going to get crit and you're going to take a ton of damage if you don't have 100% crit strike avoidance. So make sure you are getting that on one of your rings. On your gloves, you would just run another health instead of the reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Again, frailty is really important. I don't see frailty anywhere on his build, so you are going to want to run frailty on something. He does have shred armor on the gloves, however, so you do want the shred armor on the gloves. Those are going to be very important. So I'll include this build guide here. Like I said, playstyle is pretty straightforward. If you have any questions over the build, come by Twitch or come by YouTube and ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. Or you can leave a comment down below, and I will get to those as well. Thank y'all very much for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day. Peace.